The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
The Big 12 Conference never disappoints. Big 12 football is the league of chaos.
Ask Mark Harlan if the Big 12 disappoints.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was pretty crazy, and we got to probably discuss that coming up here.
We will.
Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, just kind of still, even a day later, Alex, we're kind of just taken aback by what we witnessed last night. BYU takes down Utah 22-21. And yes, you're right. It's going to be one of the leading stories in the Big 12 headlines.
12 headlines.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The dozen storylines that shape this week of Big 12 football. Headline 1.
Well, it wasn't just BYU beating Utah or Utah falling to BYU. It was the comments that Mark Harlan made in the post-game presser that brought up a lot of hard feelings kind of right off the bat. You saw first when he was wagging his finger at the officials at midfield. We were already watching that thing going, now hold on a minute. You don't see that very often. Because at first I thought, who's this weirdo staffer over here? I thought it was just a random guy. And then I look closer and I go, holy cow, that was Utah's athletic director, Mark Harlan, who then took to the podium to have these words to say to get things out there, just to make sure everybody knew he didn't like what he saw when this game ended.
This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us. Very disappointed. I will talk to the commissioner. This was not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight.
All right, so there's Mark Harlan. Were you surprised? Well, I was shocked. I've never seen that. Was something that I've never seen before. An athletic director saying, "Let me say something," and wanted to take the first minutes at the podium, and it was a shocker to have him to hear that. To be honest,
it was a shock, and it's just going to be, it's a true BYU Utah rivalry game where you have some hot take after the game. But what's crazy is that this league has produced that a couple times this year. Mm-hmm. Mac Rhodes did it from Baylor during a basketball game. Afterwards, he teed off on the refs, and that resulted in a $50,000 fine. Wow. So Mark Harlan, he might be having to pay a hefty fine. And this one's going a lot more viral than, the reach on this one, with it being a football game and an undefeated BYU team. This might be a bigger fine with what's on the line here.
Well, and so that was as big of a storyline coming out of that game as anything. It's one thing for BYU to win that rivalry game, and that's, of course, the other headline. BYU gets their second win in a row, but more importantly for BYU fans, the 22-21 win puts you at 9-0 and firmly in the driver's seat when it comes to the Big 12, which, by the way, I know you had this one down, that Colorado was going to be in a solo second place in the Big 12, and the Utes go to Colorado next week for a 10 a.m. kickoff on a Saturday to see if they can spoil the Buffaloes season. And, boy, they would actually help BYU out quite a bit if they could beat the Buffs there in Boulder. But, my goodness, the win means so much for BYU to go now to 9-0. When the college football playoff rankings come out again on Tuesday, I would love to see how insane it's going to be when they put Alabama ahead of BYU in front of the ball. Sorry,
and
I got it out
Georgia
there.
Still ahead
and
of BYU
Georgia
too.
And look, I can't even see Miami sliding all the way past BYU. And in some way, I expect all of that to come from the committee there.
BYU not having style points will probably put them at best 8. Would be my prediction.
They go up one spot after being undefeated.
I mean,
why not?
Look, there's got to be some value, I would think, if the eye test says, hey, rivalry game, right? Throw the records out. The eye test says that. That's what the committee should say. But, they'll spin it to their liking, and BYU probably only goes up to 8, and all those other teams will probably still be in front of BYU. And Colorado's going to be interesting to see what type of climb they make, because they are a national media darling. They take down Texas Tech in a big-time road win in Lubbock, 41-27.
I saw they were down early, 13-0, and I went, "Holy cow! Here comes Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders." But no, Shedeur and his guys do it, man.
I was at the KSL Sports tailgate yesterday with Steve Bartle. I'm thinking, okay, Colorado loses, Iowa State if they lose. You know, if Utah won the rivalry game against BYU, is there a path to Arlington for Utah?
Stop.
Like that was early in the day on Saturday. That feels like 7 weeks ago. How long that day was yesterday? But Colorado got it done, and they're now 5-1 in Big 12 play. Another missed opportunity for Texas Tech. It's just kind of the theme of Joey McGuire teams.
Terrible defense by the Red Raiders, of course. That doesn't help, right, when you give up 34 points. In the second half there. Iowa State goes the other direction, by the way. They get their second loss in a row. They lose to Houston, and then they lose another one today to Kansas. And now they're 7-2 with 2 conference losses. They need a lot of help to get to Arlington. And my goodness, it was a mess for the Cyclones yesterday.
They still have a game coming up against Kansas State, but yeah, this is nosedived quick where you're giving up 45 points to a Kansas team that was struggling. Kansas was down and out. Mm-hmm. They needed this win for bowl eligibility to keep that alive at least. And huge win for the Jayhawks. And they start to look like that team that we thought they were coming into the season. That's our next headline. Kansas looking like that Jayhawks squad that was a preseason top 5 team in the Big 12 Conference. Devin Neal, 118 yards on the ground. Jalen Daniels, 295 yards through the air.
Almost 600 yards of total offense, by the way, for Kansas. Maybe Jeff Grimes keeps that gig anyway after the end of everything, because they're coming on strong here, and that's the last thing BYU wants to hear is the Jayhawks come to Provo next week. Oklahoma State, they're now absolutely in a free fall. I mean, 0-3 was a free fall. We're now at 0-7 with a loss to TCU. Does a season like this put Mike Gundy not just in the hot seat, but just like right out the door? I don't know what the buyout looks for like a guy like him, but he gets like the year-on-year signing every time, and maybe he wants to be done with it. Could you see Kyle Whittingham and Mike Gundy just going, we're going to ride off into the sunset at the end of this season?
I could see it because revenue sharing's on the horizon, and maybe these coaches say, enough's enough, I'm ready to move on. Or maybe Mike Gundy wants a new challenge. Maybe he goes to another program and leverages that opportunity, because there'd be some school, SEC, Big Ten, I'm sure somewhere would want Mike Gundy to coach him up. But, what's happening at Oklahoma State, though, is crazy because they've got talent. And for them to be 0-7, that's where you start to look at that locker room, that dynamic, because they've got better personnel than what they're showing out there.
No, I agree. Next up, the Horned Frogs, by the way. After they beat up on Oklahoma State, they're 6-4 now in the year. Josh Hoover with a 290-yard, 2-touchdown performance, and they're 6-4. They're bowl eligible. Look at that. But also, I mean, the reality is TCU has turned a lot of stuff around. Sonny Dykes has got a lot to be proud of with this team right now.
After last year missing a bowl game, it's a nice step in the right direction. Still a far cry from Hypno-Toad craze 2 years ago,
sure,
where they took the college football world by storm. But KC's played some good football over the past month, and it's promising because they got a really good recruiting class that you want to keep intact, and they're finishing strong this season. So TCU, they're trending up after a slow start to this season.
4 teams, our final headline of the day, 4 teams in the Big 12 with 2 losses in the standings. So you have BYU with no losses, Colorado with 1, and then 4 teams who are trying to figure out a path to be able to get to Arlington still. And certainly with 3 more weeks left in play in conference for most of these teams, there's a lot that can change.
It's so true, and the race to Arlington is going to be epic in this league, but to think that it's BYU and Colorado, man, I mean, sign me up. Sign me up for a Coach Prime versus Kalani. I was bummed coming into this season at the thought that BYU wouldn't get a crack at Colorado and Coach Prime. I want to see that, man, in Arlington, and look, they just got to take care of business, and they'll have that opportunity.
We'll take the break here. We'll come back. Our Big 12 Sound Roundup is around the corner. You don't want to miss any of it. So stay right here, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio. Happy Sunday to you. It's 1st and 12.